Welcome to our third All Societies platform for 2022. My name is Bart Worden, and I am the Executive Director for the American Ethical Union, the National Federation of Ethical Societies. I'm also the clergy leader for the Westchester Community for Ethical Culture in White Plains, New York. The mission of the American Ethical Union is to create, nurture, and inspire ethical humanist communities to foster a world that is democratic, compassionate, just, and sustainable. Ours is a humanist movement focusing on human goodness and building ethical relationships with each other and with the earth. Our gathering today includes ethical humanist communities from across the country, and I invite you to enter your location in the chat and so give everyone a sense of where we are reaching at the moment. This is also an opportunity for us to provide a land acknowledgement. And just a word about that before I start speaking. There are many different ideas about the importance of recognizing who was here in this part of the world before the European settlers arrived. And certainly to just say something about that is insufficient. So I am hoping that with our acknowledgement today, we're also making a real commitment to real change and to really redress the wrongs that have been promulgated. We acknowledge that for generations, we have exploited, lived, and worked on the unceded territories of indigenous peoples across the United States. Let us, in our quest for justice, commit to learning how to be better stewards of the land and allies to indigenous communities. And I invite you to enter into the chat again the names of peoples who you knew lived in the area where you are now inhabiting, even if long ago. And today, we are recognizing the work of many people, both past and present. And we'll actually be starting with a bit of the past, with a mourner's moment. This last 12 months was a difficult time in many of our societies. And when I put the call out for people to say, provide some things about people who died within their communities, there was quite an outpouring. So I have a slideshow that I'll be sharing with you. song now from Leah, who provides a lot of the music for the Washington Ethical Society. And she's on the road right now, so is not available to be here live, but we do have her recording.
I was very grateful to find some kind folks who would let me use their piano to share this song with you. True love is an oasis in the desert of despair, amidst the barren lands, out up in the scorching sands, I find comfort there. True love is my greatest treasure. When it feels that all is lost, I call out to love. I will count on love, and I will be saved by love. True love, true love, true love echoes through all love. All love is the same. True love is measured in kindness. True love is never shared in vain. May all loving hearts find their way home to true love again. True love resides in a forest. True love is floating out at sea. It's up on a mountain top, it's in the deepest chasms drop. True love lives in me. True love hangs out in a city. It's in a meadow gazing at the moon. But don't look around. True love can only be found when you find it in you. True love, true love, true love echoes through all love. All love is the same. True love is measured in kindness. True love is never shared in vain. May all loving hearts find their way home to true love again. May all longing hearts find their way home to true love again.
When I think of the founders of the ethical culture movement, the name Felix Adler comes to mind, but I believe the true founders were those who urged the creation of the New York Society for Ethical Culture, signed on with the original initial organizing document, and got to work planning programs and services in line with our mission. Today, we honor past and present supporters of the ethical movement, our volunteers. In a bit, we'll be showing a video of the interviews with this year's Anna Garland Spencer Volunteer Awards. But first, let's hear about the woman who inspired the award, Anna Garland Spencer. Ethical culture leader Joan Johnson Lewis is currently the leader for the Riverdale Yonkers Society for Ethical Culture, as well as a consulting leader for the Ethical Society of Austin. Joan also has a remarkable degree of knowledge about history, including history related to Anna Garland Spencer, and she will share her thoughts now. Her address is titled Anna Garland Spencer on Democracy. Joan?
Sure. So some of you may have heard me talk about Anna Garland Spencer before, and you might know that I can easily talk about her for a couple of hours, even without notes. I promise I'm not going to do that to you today. In fact, I'm using notes to be sure I won't go too far off topic. Anna Garland Spencer was a strong believer in a vision of democracy, a kind of democracy that was not just about how do we conduct elections, but how we empower and respect everyone in all aspects of life. A deep democracy, one which I think is central to our ethical humanism and ethical culture. She described her vision this way. I've slightly updated the language. Her context at the time was about women's suffrage and women's rights and independence, but it applies more generally. She wrote, the essence of democracy is its assurance that every human being should so respect themselves and should be so respected in their own personality that they should have the opportunity equal to that of every other human being to show what they were meant to become. Women's rights were not Anna's only concern. Her mother had been an abolitionist, and her father fought in the Civil War, believing that his service would help to end the system of enslavement. Spencer remained committed to racial justice as a central concern through her life and was one of those invited to sign the founding document for the NAACP. In her early and later work as a clergy leader, Spencer also worked often in three other areas in trying to build this world of democratic participation and inclusion. One was to defend children, including from the child labor practices of that time, often destructive of both body and spirit. She worked for a scientific study of child development to change how society included and respected our youngest members. She was considered in her time one of the foremost experts on the family. Another area was to work to end poverty and its ill effects, as well as to make all work for adults, men and women, more respectful of the individual. She believed that poverty and exploitation at work limited one's ability to fully participate in this ideal of democracy. And the third area was peace. All people from all lands were included in her vision of a democratic world. Spencer was rarely the number one person in any of the organizations she worked tirelessly to support. And I would add, she didn't work completely tirelessly. Volunteers may sometimes resonate with a phrase she used at one time when she realized she needed to make some change. She said, "My flesh was gone." She was a very hard worker, and she also learned the need to back off when her limits were reached. Spencer worked with Felix Adler from 1878 into the 1920s in the Free Religious Association. She was originally an ordained minister of an independent religious society in Rhode Island. She was the first woman to be ordained in that state. Her husband, William Spencer, was a Unitarian minister known for speaking in the late 19th century on such topics as agnosticism and other social issues. After his retirement from ministry, he became a promoter of the parole system to help people who were transitioning from prison back into life. After the turn of the 20th century, Anna Garland Spencer served as an assistant leader at the New York Society, working alongside Felix Adler and Percival Chubb in the early 20th century. She was the first woman to fill such a role. She was the founder of the first summer school for ethics, which at that time was a seminar-like format, bringing together thoughtful people from a variety of fields. That summer school inspired the AEU Summer School for Lay Leadership, those for those who are not paid professional leaders in the movement, but volunteers who give their time and who want to increase their knowledge and skills to do a better job of their work. Today, we are honoring volunteers with the Anna Garland Spencer Award throughout the ethical movement. It is very appropriate that we remember Spencer in that context. One of the contributions, lasting contributions Spencer made to the history of ideas and community is a congregational song that she wrote. And I add that it's not one that we use today, first because it's very much in that 19th century stilted language typical of hymns of the time, though her hymn is not to a deity. And the tune is not one with really good associations for many of us, though I think she was trying to remake that hymn with her new words, redefining what good people were. So instead of a very traditional kind of hymn, it is a hymn to what she called the hero workers. In the first verse, she remembers the hero workers who had, quote, thoughts of wisest meaning and deeds of noblest right, unquote, who were the builders of the past, those whose lives had blessed us with gains that last. She was referring to all those who have worked for progress in the world, for the kind of participative democracy, including but beyond politics, anywhere that people have been able to bring out and realize their potential. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment right now in silence to consider thanking our hero workers of the past. Perhaps some of the people from the 147 years of this movement whose contributions laid the groundwork through thoughts and deeds to allow our movement to be here for us, to have lasted as long as it has, to be here for others who found that it meets needs for reasonable and compassionate community. You know, many of the new religious and non-theistic experiments of the 19th century did not survive. Our movement has, even if we struggle. In this moment of silence, I'd like you to consider some of the gifts that these builders of the past have left for us. So in the second verse, Spencer honors the hero workers of today. To translate her archaic words, these are people who today hear the many voices of duty calling and quickly respond and get to the work, whether it's grand or simple, whether it's in the world or today we're going to focus some time during the award ceremony to honor builders of today within our movement who gather, in Anna's words, gather life's treasure so that it will last beyond our time. And in her final verse, as you might guess, she hails the hero workers yet to come, who will come after us when those of us here are no longer present in life. And she closes with, hail ye then all workers of all lands and time, one brave band of heroes with one task sublime. So thinking of that future, how are we today making it easier for those who will come after us so that they can join this task to make a better world and better communities, to be islands of compassion and reason in a sea that is often chaotic, uncaring, and unreasonable. So before we move on to honoring our current builders and heroes, I'd like to take another moment of silence to consider those coming after us. Imagine them in your mind and imagine what you can do to make their task easier. Anna Garland Spencer was a practical person. She once said, "We are developed by our daily task." This work that we honor, past, present, and future, not only makes a better world, makes more room for others to develop their potential, but is part of our own development. She recognized that this work is often difficult and that we don't always succeed. It is not only through success that we learn and grow. Very similar to the thought of her friend and co-worker Felix Adler, she believed that building this inclusive, equal world, or working to build ethical societies where people can develop their own best, both of these also develop us in our own best. And as you will hear from others, doing the work of our ethical societies, and this would also be true in any work for a better world, it makes us better people too. So I'm going to close with an exhortation that Spencer used to close an address in Philadelphia in 1908. Be and do the best you see and can gain strength to realize wherever life has placed you and at whatever cost of struggle.
Thank you, Joan. So we do have some video coverage of the 7 candidates that were awarded the Anna Garland Spencer Volunteer Award for this year. So first, a special shout out to our past president, Sonia Coopers, and our current president, that's correct, Carolyn Parker. The two of them divvied up the interviews of the 7 candidates. I also want to thank Jake Ritter, our program support and communications person, for also providing a lot of technical support. And Vondra Thorburn, one of the awardees, who also was quick to say, you know, if you do these interviews, what's really going to take a lot of time is taking the 20 minutes that you spend with us down to 5 minutes that you'll be showing. So please note that these interviews are like about 5 minutes a piece. We're making the longer interviews available as well. So but we're not going to be showing all of them today. Otherwise, we'd be here until sometime tomorrow. So let's go ahead and start there.
Hi, John. I congratulate you on being nominated by the Ethical Humanist Society of the Triangle for the Anna Garland Spencer Award. How did you become involved in the Ethical Society?
My wife and I moved to North Carolina about 15 years ago. Prior to that, we lived in New Jersey and had gotten involved with a small humanist group. We got interested in humanism through that group. When we came to North Carolina, we did a web search for humanists. And lo and behold, the North Carolina Society. So we went and visited, and we were immediately very impressed. It was an extremely friendly group. We liked the philosophy, we liked the people, and we immediately decided to join. We were very pleased with that. Have been members ever since.
What kept you coming back once you finally joined?
Well, the people, certainly. The programs that my wife and I both found very interesting. The general idea of a congregational group, a group that met regularly and that we got to know very well. It just met our needs. It met what we were looking for. It was consistent with our beliefs. We've been very happy with the group ever since.
Excellent. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the volunteer work that you've been doing with this society?
Yes, the thing I was probably most involved in over the past 15 years was the program committee. And in fact, until recently, I headed that committee for over a decade, which was a long time in one position. I gave up that position because I felt it was time for some new blood to get in.
John, you've been participating in a program to visit in a federal prison. Can you give us just a little description of that?
Sure. The organization is Prisoner Visitation and Support. It's a national organization that visits federal prisons. It started during the Vietnam War to visit conscientious objectors who were in prison. but it quickly expanded to include any prisoners. Prior to COVID, I would go once a month, visit usually 4 men, an hour each, sit down and talk with them about whatever they felt like talking about. No restrictions. And with the assurance to them that anything they told us would not be passed on to prison authorities, short of saying they planned a prison break or planned to injure somebody. It's a wide open program. It's not religiously based in any way. They can talk about any subject they want. It's been very rewarding for me, and I hope for them when I visit also.
A meaningful program, and you took part in that program for how many years?
Oh, well over 10 years now, although COVID shut it down for the last couple of years.
But it was good for you too. Sounds
Absolutely, no question about it.
That's inspiring. And I understand that you helped with the postcard campaign in the 2020 election.
That's true. My wife and I and my daughter also all got involved in writing postcards to voters in North Carolina. And we enjoyed that activity. And I hope it was of some benefit.
Excellent. Outstanding. Thank you for that work. We sent many thousands of cards through the AEU or from AEU members, and we're glad you were part of that. Do you have any advice that you'd like to give to other people who are looking to increase their volunteer efforts?
I guess the simplest thing to say is if you want to increase your volunteer efforts, just do it. There are plenty of opportunities in any of our societies for volunteer work, both on the local level and at the national level.
I like that. Just do it. Is there anything else you want to share before we go? Any thoughts that you have?
Just because of my years of involvement, there are a few people I would like to mention. When we first started with the society, people who immediately became extremely friendly and got us involved in not only the society's activity, but other social activities in the area were Ava Harrington and Rolf Balzac. They were very important to our continued involvement, particularly Ava's openness and efforts to really bring us into the group. There were, of course, many others who did that also.
Well, but the people and their kindness were important. And
absolutely, no question.
Them and sharing your thoughts with us this morning. And again, congratulations on being given the Anna Garland Spencer Award.
Well, I feel very honored, and I greatly appreciate being given this honor.
Hi, Patrick. I'm
Hi.
Sonia Coopers, and for the next couple of days, I'm the president of the American Ethical Union. How about you, Patrick?
So I am a member of the Northern Virginia Ethical Society, your neighbor. So I've been there for about 10 years in various capacities, helping out with things like the navigators group with the kids. And I've been pretty much from the beginning helping out with the sound team, making sure that the platforms are well equipped for everyone to see and hear and all that good stuff. So
how did you first get involved with the society?
So believe it or not, the Washington Post, there was an ad that we saw that made us aware of the society. And at the time we had a young child who we were looking for some sort of social and educational experience that would be good for them and for us. And so we thought this might be a good fit for us, and it turned out it was. We've been there for about 10 years, like I said, and so we've seen our kids grow through the Sunday school program, and we've been participating in many different activities with the society over those years.
What was it that kept you coming back?
Well, so really it was the community. So we really bonded with a lot of the people in society that we felt were not only friendly, but had good principles and agreed with a lot of the things that we agreed with, and also sort of challenged ourselves to become better citizens and friends and members of society. So
could you talk a little bit more about those volunteer efforts?
From almost the beginning, I was working with our audiovisual sound team to help with just the platforms in person. And then when COVID rolled around, we obviously had to adjust for that. Yeah, we've had a lot of challenges with COVID, as I guess everyone has, because it's a pretty big hurdle to ask someone to participate in a society with all these constraints and risks and all that. So that's something we're still recovering from, but that was part of what sort of drew me to help out with some of my volunteer efforts, bridge that gap and help people participate in the platforms in a way that they were comfortable with. So yeah.
It sounds like you also have been involved with the Navigators group at Novus.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, so I have two kids who are now 15 and 11. So they, when we started at the society 10 or so years ago, they were, well, my youngest son wasn't even old enough to participate, but we were, pretty shortly after we had joined, we're looking for opportunities to sort of get our kids more involved in outdoor activities and socializing with other peers. So the Navigators was a great opportunity for that, and it really kind of blossomed into a great experience for lots of our kids, and it's also sort of a good recruiting tool of sorts, because it increases our exposure, just by virtue of being in the Navigators program. And it was a great experience, honestly, a little bit selfishly for the parents as well, because we got to hang out and enjoy nature, and it was really a lot of fun.
So speaking of, getting more people to volunteer, getting people to deepen their volunteer efforts, do you have any advice for people who might be looking to get more involved?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's really important is sort of proactively looking around, just see where the needs are, and you might obviously not be able to help out with everything where there's a need, but if you can sort of think about where your skills and your interests might align with those needs, that's a good opportunity to sort of raise your hand and say, maybe I can help here. And as a bonus, if you happen to be passionate about whatever that is, then that's great too. But
is there anything else you'd like to share?
A society is really just that, right? It's a collection of people that wouldn't function without the efforts of everyone. And so I think volunteering is really a great way to do that.
Thanks so much for sharing with me, Patrick, about your experiences volunteering at Novus.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Sonia.
Lee, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Sonia Coopers, and I'm the president of the American Ethical Union for another few days. I'm also a member of the Washington Ethical Society. I'm hoping you could introduce yourself.
I'm Lee Jenkins. I'm a member of the Mid Rivers Ethical Society and have been a member since 2006.
How did you become involved with the Mid Rivers Society originally?
Well, I think in about 2005, my family started looking for a community where we could learn and grow and, be supported by folks that valued the things we valued. The first meeting I went in, I walked into the room and I knew a third of the people in there through other political and civic organizations. And I thought, okay, I think I'm in the right place here.
So you felt right at home because you knew those folks already. Is that what kept you coming back, or were there other things that kept you coming back for more?
I think it was a series of things. It was that I did feel comfortable, and I had already lots of connections with folks, and kind of knew the caliber of those people in the room. I think it was also the great topics and the things that we were learning about at the Ethical Society, being challenged, and that was exciting. If we don't have an opportunity at a place like the Ethical Society, you might not have an avenue to do that kind of personal growth. And The third thing really was to have some support as a parent. You know, we had biological children, foster children, and the other parents that we connected with at the Ethical Society, and the adults that supported what we were doing and helped us find our way along with the parenting was a huge impact and an improvement on the parenting that we were doing.
Can you tell us a little bit about the volunteer work that you've been doing?
I can. You know, I think the most important one is the Seek director. We do it, we've always done it with kind of a one room schoolhouse. So we've got high schoolers to toddlers. And that's really worked out well for us because the older kids connect with the younger ones and support what we're doing back there. And I'm so grateful I get to be in the room when that family walks in and realizes there's a whole community of people who want to raise their kids in the same way, to value diversity, to celebrate science, to fight injustice. Like that, we don't necessarily see that in our broader communities. I think the key has been to form connections in the families. I think you can start small, and I don't think it has to be a ton of numbers right out of the gate, but you know, you form those connections and you support one another. And I think that's what grows is people see that value when they come in and they see those connections that and they realize that oh, this is a place I can make those connections too.
What kinds of things have you done to make that one room schoolhouse approach really thrive?
Try to listen to the kids. What do they want to talk about? Anything we can do to help them explore the world around them, give them as much knowledge as possible, that will help them steer themselves towards their own beliefs and how they want to move through the world. We plan the lessons so that there's kind of hands-on stuff for the younger folks to be doing while you're having kind of a higher level conversation with the older kids. But frankly, you know, our kids are so brilliant, and I think a lot of them are so primed to learn that, you know, you really don't have to teach down to them. If we just get out of their way and let them do what they want to do, I think we'll all be better off.
Do you have any advice for people in our ethical societies who might be interested in increasing their volunteer efforts?
Do, you know, I think our societies are such welcoming places that if you find something that you're passionate about, that you can add to the efforts already going on or even start new efforts, I'm willing to bet that your society is more than happy to have you, you know, take the lead and get things rolling.
Are there other things that you might like to share?
I really just feel grateful. I've loved watching our society grow. I think Seek is a huge part of that. I think it would be great to see Seek programs thriving in all our societies. I think that really is the lifeblood of what we do.
James, so
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I thought we might start by introducing ourselves. So, I'm Sonia Coopers, and for another few days, I'm the president of the American Ethical Union. How about you?
Well, James Young, and I've been at the Ethical Culture Society. We just changed our name a little bit to the Westchester Community for Ethical Culture in Scarsdale, White Plains area. I've been there, I guess it's now about 40 years.
How did you first become involved?
My wife and I had moved up from the city to that suburban area, and we had 3 kids. The oldest was, I think, 7. We happened to drive by the sign there, and we decided to check it out, and kids seemed to like it, so we stayed.
And so you kept coming back for
Oh,
things for your kids
certainly,
or for
certainly
yourselves?
the kids. That was a big deal. But I very quickly enjoyed the variety of things that there were to talk about, not to mention the variety of people, the background.
Can you talk a little bit more about when you were involved with the ethical education program?
Because I really was keen on the kids and how they would learn and so forth. And I struck it off very quickly. A couple, the fellow is to this day my best buddy and golfing partner. And his wife was the woman in charge of Sunday school. And so my daughter just thought the world of her right off the bat. And I started talking to her more and more. And we said, well, okay, I'll come in and I'll start teaching too, the older kids. I did that. I did what they call the upper form, and I became probably taught for, probably 15 years. So I got a lot out of the kids too. I must say, you go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to help, I'm going to be serving, but you really learn a lot from kids. You forget what it's like to meet an issue for the first time. They're seeing it in new eyes that you don't have. It knocks you back a little bit and you realize, oh, okay, I gotta figure out how they're coming at it and learn something from it. And I sure did every time. You pretty quickly realize you're not there to change them. You're just there to befriend, to encourage, inspire if possible. But kids don't really need a whole lot of guidance. They just holding the reins and just holding on for the ride.
You've been managing the building, and apparently there's also some rental property, and it sounds like you have a lot going on there. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, sure. Buildings, right? Buildings, just like people, need health checkups all the time. So there's basic idea of maintenance and improvement. You don't, it's you want to preempt problems is what it amounts to. So I have been.
It sounds like you have some good advice for people who might want to become more involved in their ethical society.
I think it does make a lot of sense to focus on what you're really keen on yourself, because you can't pretend to be somebody you're not. And then, of course, where your talents lie. I've been on the board and all that sort of thing. I find that very rewarding, but I stick to my physical world, the physical plant, if you will, because that's what I'm good at. And all the other things are gravy.
Yeah. I read that you were also instrumental in getting solar installed at your society.
Yes,
do you have any comments on that project?
in teaching Sunday school, I wanted to talk about it with the kids a bit, and I realized to myself, I didn't frankly know how the grid works and all these things. So I started reading and researching everything, and I called up, I got some quotes, I got some people out, and financially it made perfectly good sense. And ethically, I mean, it's a no-brainer. So I got complete positive support from the board. And thankfully, we had the money up front. So we put that money into our roof, and every day we get it back. We haven't paid an electric bill in eons.
Thank you so much for sharing with me about your various volunteer efforts. Is there anything I missed or anything else you'd like to share?
I really enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy when I get there on Sunday, I do like to sort of meditate into the moment. It is my area that's not like anything else in the rest of my days in life. So I look forward to it, and I cherish a lot of friendships.
Well, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure meeting you.
Ross Wells, it's so nice to meet you. Congratulations on being nominated by the Washington Ethical Society for the Anna Garland Spencer Award. How did you become involved with the Ethical Society?
Well, actually, my wife Beth and I were drawn to the Ethical Society via a tragedy. Our son Danny was 16. This was 1988. He had a very good friend who had a carload of teens coming back from summer, and he got into a horrific car accident in which 3 people died. And one of those 2 teens was our son's best friend, Matthew Wayman, whose parents, Todd and Lynn, were very active in the Ethical Society. We knew of the Ethical Society, but not in any depth at all. Through meeting the Waymans and seeing their reaction and the reaction of the West community and West leadership, that drew us to West in 1988, and we've kept coming ever since.
What kept you coming back?
I would say briefly that it was finding common ground. I came from an atheistic family, social activist. My wife was from a deep Methodist background. She was very active in her church until she became an adult and met me. We found common ground with people over ethical culture, people who wanted to change their relationships through that and who wanted to make change in the world.
Can you say for us a little bit about the volunteer work that you've been doing with your society?
I served on the board in 2002, 2003, co-led the building campaign that transformed West primarily for accessibility, but also to expand our footprint and to allow us to have a bigger presence in the Washington area. I worked on the building committee for years after that, so I'm a carpenter by trade. And then in 2004, I began doing service work in El Salvador that was started by the Ethical Society to allow teens to have an option to get outside of their whole network. I started going in 2004. That was the second year of the program. In 2008, changed the direction of that program to be more of a program of solidarity and mutuality with one single community. We wanted to be partners with that community in a very deep sense. So they called it actually a sister community relationship. We used partly the Unitarian Universalist model of community capacity building. So our first 2 years were spent just having meetings with the community. So it's been a great relationship. We just got back from our 12th delegation of youth and adults in the wee hours of July 4th, and that continues to this day. Another thing that Wes did that I was part of was we formed the Sanctuary DMV, so it's the District, Maryland, and Virginia, also forming our own immigration team at Wes, which is now the Wes Immigration Justice Team. We're now sponsoring and supporting an Afghan refugee family. I co-chair that team and I co-chair Global Connections with. In 2020, I co-founded the Tacoma Distribution of Food Justice DMV. Community and many West members bagged thousands of pounds of rice, beans. We provided corn oil, corn flour, fresh produce to 400 families a week for over a year. And these were primarily undocumented immigrants who had been purposely locked out of all pandemic aid by the Trump administration. There was no lifeline in any way, shape, or form. And the possibility of being deported was still looming large because ICE was being directed with a heavy hand. So using, again, a model of solidarity and not charity, we partnered with the immigrant groups. So with our partners and the Maryland National Guard, we were able to start vaccine clinics for the same groups of people and get deep into the community again because of our partnerships with them. I helped install the large TV screen so we could have combined platforms at West, a few other small things.
Do you have any advice that you would like to give to people who are looking to increase their volunteer efforts?
It's hard to volunteer on a consistent basis. To make it sustainable, a good way to do it is to pick something that really moves you. I mean, you can come up with a list and go back and forth if you have a partner, and if not, just discern what really moves. Is it climate change? Is it justice for immigrants? Is it anti-racist work? Whatever it is, pick something and try to stick with it. And if it doesn't work out, move to something else, but really, really try to pick something that moves you in the beginning. I mean, this is something that helps us all preserve our collective sanity.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I would say to pick and choose what you engage in wisely. Creating change it's about finding common ground and then organizing with people to make a better world. It's about uniting and not dividing.
It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I wish the AEU all the best. We are with you and hope to keep moving forward.
Ken, it's so nice to see you today. I want to congratulate you on being nominated for the Anna Garland Spencer Award. How did you become involved with the Ethical Society?
In 1992, when my daughter was 2.5, my first wife said to me, I don't think we can be responsible for Kira's moral education. So she started looking into things and found an ad in the local free parent newspaper. And there happened to be a non-theistic Sunday school a mile and a half from where we lived. So we're just very, very fortunate that there's that confluence. Immediately felt very comfortable. And Kira just loved being with the kids in the Sunday school.
What kept you coming back?
Another wise thing, my first wife said, they're having a retreat on Memorial Day weekend. Why don't we go? And that really cemented, we made friendships that way. Ate with people, played games with people, took walks with people. And their way of looking at the world both in terms of kind of reality and perception and in action, was really congruent with ours.
Can you say a little bit about the volunteer work you've been doing with your society?
Well, I think I've gone through a number of stages as a volunteer. The first stage was, wow, they want me to do something. They want me to help with something. The second stage was they want me to be in charge of something. And then the next stage was kind of like, okay, I can take care of it. No, thanks, but I can take care of it. And then after Sunday school, it was asking other people, can you help me with this? And then the next stage was kind of like, how can we do this better? And I think the stage I'm in now is how can we do all of this better? So it's been a lot of different things. It started with doing the budget, was asked to be on the board, and worked on both communications and budget.
Do you have any advice that you would give to people who are looking to increase their volunteer efforts?
For me, there's that old saw, service is its own reward. It's actually been true. It's been one of the key pieces of my recovering from a lifetime of social anxiety, that I've been given responsibility, have been thrust into responsibilities I would not have volunteered originally for, but then accepted, have lost elements of my natural stage fright, and I've learned to answer questions on the fly, which I had never been able to do before. The work I've done for my society was kind of like, an apprenticeship in being a more effective adult.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be if if we hadn't found the Chicago Society. And the reason that we formed the Chicago Circle was that we wanted a focus on bringing what we have to other people. To me, it's not a membership challenge, it's a service challenge. There are isolated, unchurched people who are like us, but they don't know how much like us they are. But they may not like to spend their Sunday mornings the way we do. They may not. I really hope that a lot of us do what we can to reach out, to find isolated humanists, isolated unchurched people who are, similarly of goodwill, good works, good intention, and we look to bring more community to them. It's clear from multiple studies that a lack of community is something that leads to an earlier death, all other things being considered. So it's a matter of life and death. There are people who don't feel as socially supported as their neighbors who are in congregations. Whatever we can do to bring more community to them, I think makes the world a better place.
I want to congratulate you on being nominated for the Anna Garland Spencer Award. How did you become involved in the Ethical Society?
My second job in the United States in 1974 was at the New York Society for Ethical Culture. I worked as a secretary for the membership coordinator, Yvonne Sterling, and Terry Thor, who was the press associate. When I came across the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture in 2003, I just had this flood of memories going back to the 70s and remembering very, very fondly a lot of the folks. So now I'm really delighted that I can say I touched the hand of Algernon Black. I remember Jean Cartkin. I remember Jean Brown and Eric Erickson. And I was there for Jerome Nathanson's final speech that he gave just before he died in March 1975. So I have this just great sort of well of experiences from the 70s that, I could relive. When I got to Brooklyn Ethical, and I got to Brooklyn Ethical, I said, oh, this is her. And then I made a whole bunch of new friends, including Liesel and Charlie Horwitz and Tasha Paley and Warren and Ellen and Nancy Richardson, all of these, who are now buddies for many years. And I arrived at Brooklyn Ethical when actually the house was in a little bit of a mess and they needed some housekeeping. And so, true to form, I was able to sort of get in the way, or get into action to say, okay, now then, how can I help put this together? And, having had some years of, experience in political organizing, I just felt right at home.
Excellent. Is there anything in particular that kept you coming back?
The regularity of a Sunday meeting, I just loved it. So I never wanted to just pop in and then pop out. I don't have a family, so I didn't have a lot. I don't have a lot on my plate at home to keep me at home. So Sunday platform was where I wanted to be.
What about the volunteer work that you've been doing with your society? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't even think of it as volunteer work. I think of it as just what I have to do. What I really liked years ago is I really liked having famous speakers. So I've always liked to organize a couple of events with some headline speakers. And then I always like to have parties and Christmas parties. And then with the ethical action, getting involved with the events for commemorating Charlie Horwitz. And then, of course, I was on the board.
Have you got any advice you want to give to other people who are looking to increase their own efforts as volunteers?
Well, as I say, the thing about volunteers is it's a two-edged sword. On one side, volunteers and charity work is very necessary. I think lots of people really want to do something little. But the other side of the coin is actually the social justice.
Is there anything else you want to share?
So here are some very feel-good quotes to encourage us all to volunteer. So from Rosalind Carter, we have, without volunteers, we'd be a nation without a soul. Next, we have volunteers do not necessarily have the time. They just have the heart. And then the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Our favorite, Mahatma Gandhi. The intelligent way to be selfish is to work for the welfare of others. The Dalai Lama. And then from Audrey Hepburn, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself, the other for helping others. But all of that really does cover up this other more important. It will be a great day when our schools get all the money they need and the Air Force has to hold a bake sale to buy a bomber.
Welcome back. And there we have our 7 volunteers, and we have a little bit more music. And I do need a bit of explanation about the music. So Leah Morris does just really great stuff that also includes a lot of singing along. And this is a chant. And the reason I want to say a little something is it starts with how you get to heaven. And I know for many people within the ethical world, the heaven is kind of a complicated prospect. In her use of it, she's saying, this is what we build in our lives on this planet, in our lives together. And so that's her intention here. So I do hope that you can join with her with that spirit.
Hello, my name is Leah Morris, and thank you so much for this invitation to be part of your All Society platform. I'm on the road and currently in Meadowview, Virginia. I'm grateful for a quiet place to share this music with you this morning. This song, Side by Side, was inspired by a story from the Jewish tradition. It's called The Parable of the Long Spoons. And the short version is that a mystic, a seeker, wanted to understand the nature of heaven and hell. And so in their pondering, they found themselves in an imaginal room surrounded by people who were arguing and elbowing one another at a round table. At the center of this table, there was something delicious to eat, but that could only be reached by very long spoons that each of the people at the table had. And so each person could reach this meal with their spoons, but the spoons were too long to feed themselves. And so that just fed their anger and their wrath at one another. And instantly, the seeker was transported to a similar room, actually an identical room, with the same round table and the same delicious meal in the center of the table, people seated around the table with very long spoons. But the one difference in the room was that the people weren't fighting and clashing with each other. They were laughing and sharing stories. And when it came time to eat, they discovered that with these long spoons, they could reach the food in the center of the table and extend that meal to someone across the table and also be open and receptive to being fed themselves. And the mystic, the seeker, understood immediately that the nature of heaven and hell has nothing to do with the afterlife. It has everything to do with how we choose to live together here on the earth right now. This song is called Side by Side, and I'd like to invite you to sing with me. No one gets to heaven alone, to heaven alone, to heaven alone. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We get there side by side. No one does the work on their own, the work on their own, the work on their own. No one does the work on their own. We're working side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We're working side by side. No one heals the world on their own, the world on their own, the world on their own. No one heals the world on their own. We're healing side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We're healing side by side. No one gets to heaven alone, to heaven alone, to heaven alone. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We get there side by side. No one gets to heaven alone, to heaven alone, to heaven alone. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. We get there side by side. No one gets to heaven alone, to heaven alone, to heaven alone. No one gets to heaven alone. We get there side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. we get there side by side.
So very grateful to Leah Morris for providing us a nice tribute to the folks that paid us tribute by joining those interviews and volunteering for such a long time. Thank you all for everyone who participated in those interviews. It was just remarkable to be able to sit in while people were having these conversations. And a reminder that these are excerpts of longer conversations that were had, and we will make the longer conversations available as well, because I know there's a lot that we wound up leaving on the so-called cutting room floor because we needed to keep things reasonably tight today. So among the volunteers that would be well to recognize are our board members. And we, as of last night, have a new board. We have the departure of 4 members from the previous board: Sonia Coopers, the president, and Tom Casanuovo, who is the treasurer, and also the secretary, who is Casey Gardonia-Fote, and Liz Collier, who is also a board member and had been the chair of the leadership committee for the American Ethical Union. So first of all, just a huge thank you for all the hard work that those folks put in over the last several years. And a big welcome to our newest folks. Our new president is Carolyn Parker, who I think a lot of people know and who just saw doing all these interviews. Also, John Dakin and Condra Spears and Anya Overman. Congratulations to you all for your coming onto the board. I know there's a lot of hard work ahead. We also have another congratulations to make, and I'm going to turn it over to Randy Best.
Greetings, everyone. It's my great pleasure today to welcome our newest certified leader into the ethical culture movement, and that is Christian Hayden, who many of you know. He has spoken at many societies. He did his internship at the St. Louis Society, and it may to him seem like he's been in leader training forever. It really hasn't been forever. It's just been a few years. And we're so pleased that Christian has completed the program and is now a fully certified ethical culture leader. And I would like to welcome Christian to please just say a few words of greeting or whatever you would like to share. There you are, traveling person.
Hello?
There you are.
There we go. Thank you all. I just wanted to, I know life comes at you fast. So I did want to make sure that I was able to come and just say thank you to everyone who is supporting me on this journey. It, like Randy says, it feels like it's been a while, but it also has not been. But you know, from everyone in Philadelphia to folks that let me come to their society and try new things, from Washington Ethical Society to Brooklyn to New York, and then St. Louis for hosting me and giving me a valuable experience interning. So I could go on, but I know you all have somewhere to go to. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing what we'll do together. And congrats, other fest member Anya. Yay. Okay, cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christian. And I'm glad that you could stop in a little bit and visit us this morning or this afternoon now. And welcome and congratulations again. I look forward to continuing to work with you as a colleague and to supporting you in your leadership in any way that I can. So congratulations again, Christian. And it's always, for me, feels good when we have a newly minted leader. It's the reward for all of the time and effort and learning and relationship building that is part of our leader training program. So it's fantastic to have another graduate. So everyone to join me again in welcoming Christian. And I'll turn it back to Bart.
Right. Thank you. And Christian, congratulations. It's just really exciting that you're able to join us. I do think we need a module 13, though, for the leadership training having to do with driving while Zooming, because I don't think that was one of the things that we covered. So, yeah. Coming soon to a training near you. We'll have to do an in-service so that we can all get on top of that one. You know, we're coming to a close. I would be remiss if I didn't remind people that one of the things that really helps our union grow and flourish is money. We have relied on the All Society platforms as an opportunity to remind people that when we contribute financially to the organization, we are really helping the programs get up and running. And if you do see your way clear to do that, let me go ahead and pop in the chat the link to the donation page. And you can make your donations online really easily. And you can also target your donation if you like. You can make it a memorial for someone. We have a short list of recommended places to go, one of which, of course, is All Society Programming, which is what you had today. Another is one related to Elle Miller. After Elle died, in conversations with Elle's husband, one of the things Sean said was that he would really appreciate if we could have a fund that helps support, especially the existing, but also the growing groups. And so the Evergreen Fund there is one that is really targeted to helping groups grow and flourish. And so if you see your way clear to donating to either or both of those funds, or any others that you'd like to, that would really be most welcome. So again, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to give another shot at running that slideshow. Hopefully this time it will play properly. Thank you all for being here today. Well, everyone, thank you for coming out today.